Hello, and welcome everybody to the National Trends in Disability Employment,
or nTIDE,
Lunch and Learn series.
Just a few housekeeping items before we begin.
This webinar is being recorded.
We will post an archive of each webinar each month on our website at www.researchondisability.org/nTIDE.
This site will also provide copies of the presentations, the speakers' bios, full transcripts, and other valuable resources.
As an attendee of this webinar, you are a viewer.
To ask questions of the speakers, click on the Q&A box on your webinar screen and type your questions into the box.
Speakers will review these questions and provide answers during the last section of the webinar.
Some questions may be answered directly in the Q&A box.
If you have any questions following this recording, please contact us at disability.statistics@unh.edu
or toll free at 866-538-9521 for more information.
Thanks for joining us.
Enjoy today's webinar.
Hi, everybody. This is Andrew Houghtonville. Welcome to nTIDE Lunch and Learn. So nTIDE occurs noon Eastern on the first Friday of each month with the release of the nTIDE report. It's a joint effort of the University of New Hampshire, Kessler Foundation, and the Association of University Centers on Disability, AUCD. And I think we're now in our 13th season, I believe. Hard to believe. Just one announcement, if you haven't done so already, please register for our annual Disability Statistics Conference. We have both online and in person, and we've been really trying to boost the online, and I think we're getting really close to having it as good as we could possibly get. And so if you go to Research on Disability, one word, researchondisability.org/conferences, you'll be able to get to that registration, or you can contact us at UNH. We've been doing that since at least 2009, maybe earlier. And it's where we introduce our big annual statistical supplement. We do the nTIDE monthly, but there are a lot of data sources. Actually, nTIDE is the only monthly source of data other than Social Security data, which is lagged like a year. Yeah, so it's one of the few sources of monthly data, nTIDE, but we also provide a lot more statistics in our compendium, which is basically designed to go by state. And so we have a lot of tables with the states. All right. And so today's special session, it's not a special session, is it? Is it a special session? Sure, it's special. Helen's special. nTIDE report, John and I will present the nTIDE report, then Shoshana Marin, as in Marin County, Shoshana Marin at AUCD will be giving the nTIDE news, and our guest speaker is Helen Genova from Kessler Foundation, who will be joined by I think Stephanie. Anyway, they'll be presenting some stuff interactively, which is great. And then we'll follow up with Q&A, and hopefully we'll have about 15 minutes to give Helen a sense of where we're at. So now I'll turn it over to John for part one of the nTIDE report. John?
Next slide. Andrew?
Yes,
Good morning,
John.
everyone.
Take it away.
Thanks. So next slide, I'm going to talk about the nTIDE report, its origins. It's a monthly report. It's a press release, an infographic looking at the most recent employment statistics. It uses data from the jobs report, which is released by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics on the first Friday of each month. Next slide. The source of the data is the Bureau of Labor Statistics Current Population Survey, which is the source of the official unemployment rate, which the media makes so much of. And it's civilians age 16 to 64 that are not living in institutions. And this information's been available since, at least this information on people with disabilities has been available since 2008 onward. The CPS, that was the year that the CPS added the 6 disability questions. And the data is not yet seasonally adjusted for people with disabilities, and which is why we compare to the traditionally we compared to the data to the same month last year. Although since COVID, we started focusing on the month-to-month changes because we felt that was a more sensitive kind of look at disability statistics. And it gave us the capacity to look really longitudinally in a very detailed fashion, as you will see when Andrew presents the results. Back to you, Andrew.
Thank you, John. I just fired off an email to our guy, Nate. You know, we have enough data to do the seasonal adjustment. It usually takes 10 years of data. I'm not sure how they've adjusted for COVID, but I'd love to be able to provide the seasonally adjusted so we could provide even more finite information. All right. So employment to population ratio, this is the first indicator that we track. It's basically the percentage who are working divided by the number of people in that population. So the number of people with disabilities, 16 to 64 not living in institutions, those folks, all of them, and then the percentage of those that are working, and then the same for people without disabilities. So we'll have 2 trend lines going back to 2008. And this is the trend line we've been following. A few things to note. There's the Great Recession, which is this gray blob area back in 2008 and midway through 2009. The Great Recession had already been going before this trend line started. And we have the Great Recession. For people with disabilities, a big thing to note is that the decline from the Great Recession really didn't stop until January of 2014, as opposed to January of 2010. So, 1, 2, 3, 4 years difference. And so that's a big deal. Why didn't people with disabilities recover as quickly as people without disabilities? And there's some going hypothesis. I'd love to chat about it sometime. Hasn't been a lot of research on why that happened. And then between, say, 2014 and 2018, so about a year or so before COVID, 2 years before COVID, people with disabilities actually experienced an increase. And between 16, 17, and 18, you actually saw a narrowing for the first time in all the data I've ever seen. You see a narrowing. I have other data that goes further back, but you see this narrowing of the employment gap. So the difference between people with and without disabilities. And so, so that's right around the start of the first Trump administration. The economy was going well. We're running, not yet hitting COVID. And it was a period of full employment. And then we see a kind of a leveling off through 2018 and 19, and then COVID hits. COVID hits, percentage-wise, the decline for percentage point-wise, the decline for people without disabilities is bigger. The decline for people without disabilities is bigger, but as a percentage of the employed, it's actually a little bit smaller than for people with disabilities. And so, the the decline going from 31 to 26 is much more impactful percentage-wise on the population than going from 74 to 63. People with disabilities recovered pretty well, and then it took people without disabilities about 2.5 years to reach its pre-pandemic level, whereas people with disabilities reached it in about 1.5 years. So people with disabilities outpaced, were sooner to recover back to the pre-pandemic level, and then overshot not just the pre-pandemic level, but also the previous high set in this time series, going well past it, almost to 40%. We came 0.2%. The month after the most recent government lockdown, we were at 39.8%. And so while people without disabilities have been flat ever since reaching basically the pre-COVID peak. So eventually this post-COVID expanse stopped, and in the last about 1.75 years, we had a kind of a plateauing. The jump in December, and then there's this little point in the middle for December. That jump, there's no evidence to suggest that the lockdown and kind of the change in data collection that may have occurred because of the lockdown had any impact. It certainly didn't impact people without disabilities. And so, this could be, we've had similar jumps in here. You can see some jumps, seasonality could play a role maybe. But really, that's an incredible mark. Now we've come back down to kind of the standard. In January, we were at 38.4, so almost a 1.5 less than that peak. But it's great to see a peak, even if it's sampling variation. On average, it pulls us up. So, and we didn't see the same for people without disability. So I'm going to click in November. Anybody want to take a guess? Up, down, about the same? About the same, a little bit less. So people with disabilities went down by 0.3% from 38.4% to 38.1%. So a small decline, certainly within the range. It's still at the top level of the previous plateau. Seeing 1, 2, 3 months of decline recently is certainly, we would have loved to seen a new plateau up at 39.8%, but we're kind of coming back to that plateau. We'll see what happens. People without disabilities stayed the same. I'll do labor force participation next, and then I'll talk about kind of what we might expect given the bombing campaign in Iran and potential spike in oil prices and gasoline prices. So I'll talk about that after going through labor force participation. So labor force participation is the percentage of the population, but we add in people who are actively looking for work or on temporary furlough. And so you're in the labor market if you're active looking, right? You're in the labor market if you're actively looking and for work and working. And so it's more of an indicator of kind of how active a certain group is in the labor market. Similar patterns, declines. A lot of times this will be called discouraged workers. If people don't look for work in the last 4 weeks, they report they haven't looked for work in the last 4 weeks. They're not considered in the labor force. They're considered out of the labor force. And so you still during a recession see declines in labor force participation. So for COVID, so we see a decline after the Great Recession and a rise. We did see a narrowing in that same area. We see a narrowing for 2017 and into 2018, and then a leveling off. COVID, there's this, and this is kind of something that's kind of emblematic. so we see the rise after COVID, then we're busting through. We see a new normal. We see a rise. Continued little bit of a rise here, but very much a similar pattern. Now, the reason I highlight this COVID, that it really didn't decline much during COVID. And to leave the labor market, you have to basically say, I haven't been looking for work, right? I'm not working. I'm not actively looking for work. And one thing we know about the population with disabilities is that they're about 3 times as likely to live in a family that has income below the poverty line. And so when you're in a family that is living right on the edge of poverty, our household, you don't necessarily leave the labor market. You're going to be scrounging. And if you hadn't been working prior to COVID, you might be part of the family's effort to maintain that level of income needed to meet needs. And so I've never been surprised that at this. If you know anything about the population with disabilities, if they're working, they're not going to jump out of the labor market. They could be hard to maintain their own personal income, but also family income. And unfortunately, we also know that people with disabilities have much less savings, even with the ABLE accounts and things like that. People with disabilities have a lot less savings and can't necessarily stay out of work for more than 4 weeks. And so I'll snap in February, basically the same story. Everything's kind of remaining the same, kind of staying at the top of the recent new plateau. But if we think about, I've watched gas prices at least 5 cents every morning and 5 cents when I leave. So we're now at 305. We were at 260 just before this stuff started. And, that rise that really hurts families that don't have access to public transportation. Workers need to start thinking about additional jobs, and it will take a while for that to percolate into other markets. But truckers and diesel is going to be a lot more expensive. And so it's going to filter through. And, I don't know what's going to happen with the gas supply, but as a child, it's why I'm an economist. I lived through the recession, the stagflation and the high interest inflation rates of the 1970s. I remember seeing sticker prices being we used to have stickers with prices on them instead of the scan codes. The stickers would be stacked on top of each other as retailers tried to stay up with price rises. And so I wouldn't, for labor force participation, I actually think it could increase for people with disabilities. Employment, I don't know. That depends on how long this goes. Usually with big shocks, employers are not quick to fire people. It's too hard these days, especially in the Northeast and other places where there are very few workers. There's a bit of a worker shortage. Employers are not going to, they'll put people on layoff. And so we might go back to that temporary layoff, furlough analysis. I've heard in the media that furlough amount has been increasing, and that's probably employers responding to the tariff issues in the last year, and now with the potential rise in oil prices. So I've taken way too long, and I will turn it over to Shoshana Marin from AUCD. Shoshana, take it away.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Shoshana Marin. I'm the Policy Fellow at AUCD. Start with government funding, just kind of broadly. So congressional appropriators are beginning to plan for fiscal year 2027 appropriations. Typically around this time of year, many different organizations, lobbyists, constituents schedule meetings with congressional staff to ask for certain amounts of funding, to ask for specific report language that they want to see in appropriations bills. It's typically called fly-in season because a lot of folks come into DC to have those meetings. And of course, this will impact disability programs, including disability employment. So many are funded through annual federal appropriations that primarily support vocational rehabilitation, policy development, and competitive integrated employment initiatives. Major programs like the Vocational Rehabilitation State Grants, which are authorized by IDEA, and initiatives undertaken by the Office of Disability Employment Policy, and in the past, the Disability Innovation Fund. Next slide. So this report came out recently. This is the Government Accountability Office, which does research into many other different government agencies. And so this is a report that was requested by House Education and Workforce Committee ranking member Bobby Scott, as a Democrat from Virginia, and Frederica Wilson, Democrat from Florida. And so the report reviewed the programs authorized by the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA. And WIOA mandates that job centers, workforce programs are physically and programmatically accessible to people with disabilities and allow accommodations when needed. So the report looked into the number of people participating in certain Department of Labor workforce programs, what services they used, and then what their employment outcomes were. It looked at what state and local workforce agencies are doing to make sure that the programs are accessible to people with disabilities, and the Department of Labor's overall efforts to make sure that these programs are accessible. So this is state, local, and federal review. And GAO found that state and local workforce agencies face challenges in ensuring the programs are accessible. The Department of Labor's oversight was not, they found that it was not entirely comprehensive, that there were many gaps in data collection and oversight practices, and they made a few recommendations. One was that the Secretary of Labor collect more data on the types of disabilities that people had who were using these workforce programs. The Department of Labor disagreed with this recommendation. They said that they don't require participants to disclose this information on the disability type, consistent with non-discrimination provisions and supporting regulations of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And the administration used a similar argument previously when we saw a proposed rule to revise regulations implementing Section 503 of the Rehabilitation Act. And that was about ensuring that government contractors had a certain threshold of, not exactly a certain threshold, but they were working towards a certain threshold of having workers with disabilities in their companies. And so they used a similar argument there, but they did agree with the GAO's recommendations for the Secretary of Labor to develop a written procedure for routinely analyzing the Department of Labor's state monitoring reports, and then for evaluating state and local workforce agencies' awareness and use of guidance that has the guidance that has come from the Department of Labor. So next slide. The Department of Housing and Urban Development released a new proposed rule that would allow public housing authorities and certain landlords that rent to federally subsidized tenants to implement work requirements and time limits for non-elderly, non-disabled families. And so work requirements tend to be targeted towards people where the government will say, except for people with disabilities, except for older adults. But critics of these kinds of policies often say that this could destabilize tenants who are already quite vulnerable. And also carving out people tends to be a sort of a flawed system and very challenging to do. So there are definitely concerns that if this proposed rule goes through all of its steps and becomes a final rule, this could again destabilize vulnerable tenants and cut funding for affordable housing, which would be concerning for the housing crisis overall. HUD's existing moving to work programs have allowed a select group of local public housing authorities to experiment with employment incentives and requirements for tenants. So things like work requirements. This new proposed rule, which is set for publication on Monday, will expand that permission to most public and federally supported housing managers. So allowing for a little bit more of allowing for more experimentation with more housing managers and sort of these various entities that oversee federally subsidized housing. Next slide. The Department of Labor announced that National Apprenticeship Week 2026 will take place from April 26th to May 2nd. This is an annual celebration, showcases how registered apprenticeship programs advance worker mobility, meet employers' workforce needs by preparing Americans for jobs in high growth, high demand industries, including manufacturing, technology, and infrastructure. This year's theme is America at Work, Making America Skilled Again through Registered Apprenticeship. Next slide. This is a new report from the University of Minnesota, but it's also written by a few other folks, including Liz Weintraub, who works with me at AUCD. It's called The Language of Inclusion, and essentially is a deep dive into the use of plain language, which is a tool, a way of writing, a way of communicating that ensures that information is truly accessible. It helps people with and without disabilities understand and remember information. It empowers people to make their own decisions because they can understand what's being asked of them, what changes are happening in the government, everything from going to a doctor's appointment and understanding what's happening to advocating to the federal government. And it dives into things like knowledge translation, which is just sharing information so people can use it, including experts sharing their ideas in research reports in academic journals. So translating that into plain language so that people can understand it, looks into the use of AI, web accessibility, advocacy, mental health, and includes resources to help people learn more about plain language, the movement, the tool, and to help make content into plain language if you are looking for resources into that. The next slide. There's an upcoming webinar. It's about the evolving role of DD councils in employment on March 10th. This is in recognition of Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, which is March. It will include partners from NECDD. It's through the Disability Employment Technical Assistance Center and includes the Nebraska DD Council. So that's everything from me. I'll go ahead and introduce our next speaker, is Dr. Helen Genova. She is the Associate Director at Center for Autism Research at the Kessler Foundation and is a cognitive neuroscientist whose work focuses on autistic transition-age youth as they move from youth into adulthood. Her research centers on the development and evaluation of novel technology-based interventions designed to improve employment and community participation outcomes for autistic young adults. Drawing on principles of positive psychology, she builds scalable, engaging interventions that empower youth to use their personal strengths to improve their work readiness skills. She is pleased to share her work with the nTIDE audience and contribute to advancing employment outcomes for neurodivergent individuals.
Okay, thank you so much. So my name is Helen Genova. Okay, I'm still sharing. Good. And it's so exciting to be here, and I'm really excited to tell you about my work and what we've been working on. So as I was just introduced, I am the Associate Director for the Center for Autism Research at Kessler Foundation, and our whole motto is really helping youth succeed by focusing on their strengths. I'm assuming that many people understand autism, but I just wanted to tell you some of the key characteristics of autism. There are difficulties in social interaction. There can be challenges in communication, and then there are also some behavioral patterns that don't look typical. And I wanted, on a personal note, to kind of share with you my own personal journey with autism. So these are two of my favorite people who are on the spectrum. On the left is my son. So my son was diagnosed at the age of 4 with autism spectrum disorder. And he is my inspiration in all that I do. I had been working with people with disabilities for years and years and years. And then I had this amazing opportunity to combine my personal and professional passions and focus on autistic transition age youth. And he's 19 now and doing really well. But again, a lot of his life has sort of inspired us as a team. And on the right is Dr. Temple Grandin, who we had the honor of working with this year and meeting. And she's just a wonderful autistic scientist and self-advocate. So really happy that we got to spend time with her this year. So as you may or may not know, there is an unemployment crisis in the autism population. Some estimates say that as high as 80% of autistic adults are unemployed, meaning that only 1 in 5 adults on the spectrum will be employed. And this is a really concerning number. There are many barriers to employment for this group. But one of the things that I have read is that they tend to be a vulnerable population in the disability community in terms of employment. So an autistic high schooler is much more at risk of unemployment compared to other types of disabilities, whether they be physical disabilities or even an individual with Down syndrome. For whatever reason, autistic young adults tend to be unemployed at a much higher rate. So there are 2 main obstacles that we have identified in our work, and these are the ones that we wanted to really focus on. We wanted to help youth achieve their employment goals, but we wanted to first see, well, what are the difficulties that they're really having, and then how do we help with those things? So one particular obstacle for them is the job interview. So youth on the spectrum do not always know how to strategically sell themselves to others. So for example, if you ask someone on the spectrum, tell me about yourself. On a typical job interview, we sort of know what's expected there. So for example, if I were on a job interview, I would start with what I currently do. So I'd say, my name is Helen Genova. I'm the Associate Director for the Center for Autism Research. I'm a scientist. However, if you asked someone on the spectrum, tell me about yourself, they might tell you something about something they really enjoy, like a hobby. They might tell you about their pets. They might tell you about the last country they visited, which are all honest answers to the question. However, they may not be aware that this is not the most strategic way to go about a job interview. The other thing that we saw was that there are difficulties in job maintenance. So a lot of times you will have an autistic individual who is just an amazing employee. However, something happens on the job. Maybe it's negative feedback from an employer. Maybe it's an unpredicted schedule change. Maybe they come into work one day thinking they were going to do X and now they've been assigned Y, and they have an emotional reaction to it, which can sometimes lead to a behavioral reaction. So for example, they might start crying, they may want to leave, go home and say, I'm never coming back. So even though there are some amazing vocational rehabilitation programs out there to help individuals with disabilities achieve competitive integrated employment, we saw that these are 2 gaps in services that we wanted to tackle. That led us to create our intervention called KF Stride into the interview. So KF Stride stands for Kessler Foundation Strength, Identification, and Expression. And it's a web-based program for autistic youth that focuses on 2 steps. First, strength identification. So just helping them understand what their strengths are. Sometimes kids on the spectrum are not aware of that. We see a lot of low self-esteem in this population as well. And so just teaching them, what amazing attributes do you have that you bring to the table? And the other thing is, how do we successfully talk about those things to an interviewer? How do we tell them all the amazing things about you? And so, as I said, we really focus on strengths. We know that they have challenges. They know that they have challenges, but we wanted to make sure that the thing that we are focusing on is, okay, even if you have challenges, here are the things you're doing well. And that's how we're going to talk about that to an employer. So I am actually going to stop sharing and I'm going to let Steph share her screen. Okay, great. So this is our platform. This is our web-based platform. So when a student is working with us, this is what they see. And the first thing that they do, if you click on lesson 1, is they meet an animated character called Scott the Strength Spotter. Scott is the one who delivers the content to the student. We really wanted this to be accessible and scalable. We wanted teachers to be able to use this, voc rehab specialists, teachers, educators, whoever it was, we wanted them to be able to easily deliver this to students. So rather than having them deliver, we have an animated character deliver it. So we're going to let you meet him too. I apologize. I think he's a little laggy there. Steph, are you having tech issues?
Yeah, I think it stopped. Let me try and
Okay.
stop and reshare one more time.
Okay. And what we wanted to do as Steph does that is we wanted to make this character very engaging and appealing. So you're going to see he makes jokes. We know that students on the spectrum and with other types of disabilities get all this information from either books or from existing programs. Sometimes it can be kind of dry and forgettable. So we really wanted to make something that was going to be fun and engaging for this population.
Hi there. Some people call me Scott the Strength Spotter because I help people figure out what their strengths are and how to talk about them on job interviews. I'll be helping you over the next few weeks while you learn about yourself. But before we start, I'd like to learn more about you. There are many things that make up the person you are. People aren't just one-dimensional like me. I'm actually two-dimensional if you want to get technical about it. But instead, they have likes and dislikes, talents and skills, lots of experiences, and strengths and weaknesses. For example, if you'd like to know a little bit about me, and of course you do, I can tell you about myself. For my likes and dislikes, I like cats. Definitely not a dog person. I like drawing, and I like chocolate cake. Chocolate. For my dislikes, I really dislike mean people and country music. No offense to anyone, it's just not my thing. Now let's talk about talents and skills. These are things you think you are good at and things you are working on.
Thanks, Steph. And so basically the purpose of this lesson is first, it's an icebreaker. We want to build rapport with the student. But importantly, what we want to have them understand is that there are many things that you can talk to an employer about. I mean, there are many things that make up the person you are, right? So you may like this, dislike that, you may love to draw, etc. But there are only certain things you are going to speak about to a job interviewer. So then we begin to get into teaching them to be what's called a mind reader and only telling employers what they're interested in hearing. So that's what we're going to show you next.
On the job interview, you might be thinking, Why do we want to know all this stuff anyway? It's because I want you to be awesome on the job interview. But to do this, you have to do something special. You have to be a mind reader. Yes, you need to read minds. Well, 1 second. That's better. Okay. You're not literally going to read their mind, but you're going to try to predict what the employer expects you to say. But how would you know what the employer expects you to say?
Good job, Steph. So basically what we know is that kids on the spectrum may feel a little bit overwhelmed when asked a question like, so tell me about yourself. They may not know what types of information the employer is expecting to hear. And so what we try to do is we say to them, they want to know about your strengths. They want to know about your experiences. They don't want to hear about your negative experience with a previous boss. They want to hear about the way that you worked within a team. So we help them sort of frame those answers in a positive way. We also try to make sure that it's all customized to the student so that the students are really talking about their unique strengths. They're not being taught to pretend to be anyone other than who they are. Okay, and so now the other cool thing is they have the opportunity to practice their interview skills by going back and forth with a filmed actor. And we just want to show you that very briefly.
My name is Anthony, and I'm so happy to be meeting with you today. So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Okay, great. So if you see there's a red button with a pause sound, and basically at this point, the student would pause the interview and then they would answer. And then whoever's working with them, whether it be a teacher or a job coach, would give them very structured manualized feedback that we provide. So now I'm going to take back over my screen here. So this work was actually funded by the National Institute of Mental Health, and I just want to show you the results of our recent trial that we just published. So if you look at this line here, this orange line, these are students who were in the KF Stride group. So they received KF Stride to see how they would do on their job interview skills. And we saw that from before to after, there was this very strong increase in their job interview skills. In the group that did not receive KF Stride, we just saw a flat line. Their job interview skills didn't change from before to after, which is expected. The thing that we were really excited about was, if you remember that 80% unemployment rate in this population, we looked at job seekers only. So those kids who were actively going out, filling out applications, going on job interviews, and we asked them if they experienced a positive employment change following KF Stride. And we found that 54% of the KF Stride group received employment, became employed, compared to only 12% in the control group. And that was really exciting for us to see. Here are a couple of papers if you want to check them out about KF Stride. So this one is the paper describing the development process, how we developed the program. And then this was the recent randomized controlled trial. The really exciting aspect of this work has been that we are now trying to scale this out into the community. So we have been talking to voc rehab agencies in New Jersey, New York, and even Louisiana. So we recently partnered with Louisiana State University to use KF Stride in their agencies being implemented by their staff. And so that's been really cool. And we've received really positive feedback. So this is a teacher at the Sinai School in Teaneck, New Jersey. And she reports that even months after our students took the KF Stride program, we still see them using their new skills in the school and in the community. It was truly a transformative program for them. And then we were funded by the New Jersey Health Foundation to see if it's implemented by teachers and not by scientific staff, do we still see improvements in job interview skills? And so this is just from the Sinai School, from pre to post, their students increase in job interview skills. So that was very exciting. We were funded by NIDLR, so we have an ongoing field-initiated grant where we are now creating a version of it, or we've just finished creation of it, for more career-focused individuals. So the original program is for those students and even adults who are looking for that first job. Who maybe have never worked before. But then we started to see a need of people in the community who were really more career focused, who maybe have been working, but they want something a little bit more in their career, but they feel like the job interview is holding them back. So we have created this career focused one where we talk about things like an elevator pitch. How to handle rejection following the interview, how to keep going when you don't get that job, and how to handle things like small talk, which can be quite difficult for individuals on the spectrum. The other thing that I just want to mention briefly is, as I mentioned before, we have this concern in employment maintenance. So sometimes kids not lacking sort of coping skills to deal with some of the difficulties that they experience day to day. And so we created a program called KF-STRIDE Into Work, which focuses on positive coping skills and emotion regulation. It's very similar to the interview program where we have the content led by Scott. He's very popular with the kids that we work with, and that it focuses on strategies sort of grounded in positive psychology. And it was made in partnership with the autism community, which is really cool. So we talked with parents, employers, autistic youth themselves, and educators to find out what were the specific challenges and then how we could help them. And we were really excited because recently we presented this work at conference, and what we found was that the students following KF-STRIDE reported increased use in their strengths in their day-to-day lives. So what's next? We really want to continue to scale this. So we are currently delivering it to KF-STRIDE to individual families. So if you know of anyone who wants to participate, they can reach out to us. We're trying to build capacity of schools, vocational rehab agencies to deliver KF-STRIDE, and we want to continue to monitor the employment outcomes. I wanted to just acknowledge our funding sources who have helped us create these programs and also the evaluation of them. And I just wanted to thank my team who was featured here, and to tell you that if you're interested in learning more about the program, please come to our website, www.kfstride.org. The QR code is there, and I'll leave that up. And then also to follow us on Facebook. So I'm going to leave that up for the moment so that anyone can look at it.
That's great. I haven't been paying attention to the Q&A because I've been listening. So let's see.
Andrew, lower your mic.
That might help.
There you go.
Sorry if you didn't hear me. I haven't been paying attention to the Q&A, but thank you. That was a great presentation. It's really interesting. I actually clicked into your front page and saw the video link, and my first question was going to be, can you speed it up? And yes, you can speed it up. Although it went from 1 to 150, 1.5. I usually do 1.25 on YouTube, but can I just ask a couple questions, basic ones? All right, I'll ask. Carlos Gonzalez asks, would the KF-STRIDE, it sounds a bit like something out of KFC, but sorry. So would KF-STRIDE be expanding to other states like Florida, Louisiana in the near future?
Well, we are. That's a great question. We do all of our coaching online, so we can expand anywhere, anytime. So as I said, please, reach out to me, or you can go right on kfstride.org and send us a contact email. And yes, we are happy to expand and looking for expansion.
Have you developed any kind of train the trainer materials as part of your stuff? So
yes. Another great question. Yes. So we actually have an online teacher training course, and they watch a series of videos. They take some quizzes. They try out some of their things, and then we also support them during delivery. So we can come in and observe teachers and voc rehab staff delivering it, and then offer feedback is something that we offer.
Sounds great. Is it available for nonprofits who support career progression for people with disabilities?
Yes, absolutely. It's available. As I said, anybody who wants to use it. We've worked with nonprofits, private therapists, schools, private schools, public schools, you name it. So we are really looking to get it into the hands of anyone who needs it.
What is the time commitment for Stride for an individual taking part?
Yes, great question. So we have 10 lessons in our current program. Each lesson is roughly 45 minutes to an hour. A lot of people say, wow, that's a long time. And it is, but job interview skills are particularly challenging, especially for some people. So that's why we focus so much on it. They'd be very hard to teach in 2 to 3 hours. So we meet with you once or twice a week, and then you usually complete the program within a month to 2 months, depending on how often you meet with our staff or with your own staff, if it's being delivered at your school.
Okay. That answered live. Our organization developed training for folks on the spectrum. What does the collaboration with KF Stride normally look like? Is there a yearly fee? So
yes, there is a yearly fee, and I would be happy to jump on a call and share that. And why I say that is because different people have different budgets, and we want to make sure that we are working with you to make sure that it works with your budget and your institution. We're happy to do that. Yes, so partnership usually looks like you would have an initial meeting with me. I would do a more in-depth demo, make sure it works for you and your students, and then we would set you up with the training, and we would just make sure that you feel confident to deliver it to your students. And that's it.
Is there kind of an on-call? This is my own question. Is there an on-call process for like any time of day or night kind of thing for people needing support? Because I'll just stop there because obviously.
Yeah. So I'm always around, so I'm usually there to answer questions. There is nothing at this moment that, like, if somebody was doing KF Stride in the middle of the night or in another part of the world that I was sleeping, that we couldn't help. We couldn't help instantly. The nice thing about it is that it's mostly videos that the students are watching. So it's like, watch a video, pause the video. And so there's nothing about it that's so technical that there are bugs or challenges. So we've seen really smooth delivery.
I guess I was thinking for people who are out in the world who use it, get a job, or they're preparing for an interview. Sure. Are there any supports beyond, or is it up to kind of the organization, the school, or the voc rehab group that does it?
What we provide is at the end, there's a summary, which kind of summarizes the highlights of the program. And then there's also a worksheet that students can complete the night before a job interview, which kind of refreshes them on preparing all the skills that they learned, kind of prepares them for the interview the next day.
Okay. Cool. If you have somebody diagnosed with autism, I could pass just KF Stride to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. General note from Teresa Cody. If you don't already know, APSE, APSE.org. APSE has a national conference coming up in June 26 on employment, just awesome. For everybody here. Tricia, if you want to share that with us, we can post it on our next nTIDE. Are you partnering with a university autism support programs such as Rutgers? Do you participate with others?
We do participate with a number of universities, and we're sort of reaching out to different ones right now. Like I said, Louisiana State University is using our program, so we're always open and willing to talk and see if there's a partnership possible.
Is there an age range you guys are thinking about?
So we work with kids as young as 14, and then to start to prepare them for those skills. And like I said, we have a more career focused program that we're evaluating right now. And so we try to have a program that you might have a 30-year-old who would be more, who would find this program more helpful if they've never had job experience. And then you may have an 18-year-old who's ready to go right into an IT job, and they might find our career focused program more. So we try to, that initial call, we try to evaluate where that person would best be fit.
What would be the best way to contact you all?
Okay, so you can email me if you'd like, or you can go onto our website, but Steph will drop into the chat my email address, but it's hgenova@kesslerfoundation.org. But also this website where I have the QR code, there is a contact link, so you can contact us there.
So does your career, you talk about your career module you're building, does it address kind of job maintenance, kind of how to maintain your job, not necessarily grow within a job?
So the career-focused one that was funded through NIDE, that's still on the job interview process. It's still on how to, yes. The maintenance one is more on emotional and positive coping. And that right now is geared towards young adults or adults who have significant cognitive disabilities.
Okay. Yeah, Teresia will contact Julie Christensen. She's presented on nTIDE before, so at APC. Okay, I'm going to go up to a couple questions. We have about 4 minutes left. So the GAO report, regarding the GAO report, at the same time, universal design is not, universal access has decreased. Talking about the rescission of, so this is talking about the Robin Brandt is talking about the rescission of the 2022 interpretation of Section 18 of WIOA with regard to universal access. So they withdrew the guidance for the disability reference guide. So yeah, so there's been resources that have been withdrawn. Good thing about Kessler and STRIDE is that the government doesn't own it. You know, that's one thing about grant funded things. I don't know if there's anybody from ODEP. ODEP has always done things under contract where ODEP owns much of the results. Nowadays, I'm not so sure I would want the federal government to own things that we develop. So someone also asked, Sarah asked, what is the time commitment for people who want to train to deliver the program? So the train the trainer stuff.
That's a lot easier. So that's about 3 hours of time spent looking through our training materials. And then, like I said, we like to meet with the teachers 2 to 3 times during KF Stride delivery, just to make sure that they feel confident. So it's probably about 6 hours all in total.
Yeah.
And that includes meeting with us.
Yes. So so we only have a couple minutes left. Just one question. In terms of translation to other languages, are you working on that at all? And then I'll ask the other one. Have you considered or partnering to test and develop the program for other, say, intellectual disability or learning disabilities?
So great question. So in terms of other disabilities, the wonderful thing is we do not mention autism anywhere within the program itself. So it is, and at the Sinai school where I showed the results there, Most of the girls in the class did not have autism as a diagnosis. They had some disability, but it was not something that it wasn't autism. So it seemed to be very well suited for other types of intellectual and developmental disabilities. And we're looking to broaden that out. In terms of other languages, I would love to. It would just take funding and devoted time and energy. Yeah.
What about jobs, online jobs and online interviews? Do you guys work through that?
We do. We have a whole module devoted to online.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And I'm sure IT is, or AI. Anyway, we're running out of time, but this is great work. I really appreciate hearing about it. And Kessler's been hiding you from nTIDE for a long time, it seems. I don't know what the deal is. But
I've come out of hiding.
Coming out of hiding, right?
Yes.
Now that you have publications, it's easier to talk,
There you go. Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Geneva and Steph. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, John and Shoshana. This has been a great episode. I wish it was one of our extended episodes because I have a lot more questions, but maybe another time. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay.